My favorite pastime for as long as I can remember was daydreaming about how I was going to be a famous singer. Specifically, when I would listen to songs where they had vocals that I wish that I could accomplish. I remember I have this image of me in my mom's room watching Camp Rock. And it was This Is Me playing when Mitchie is on stage, and it's revealed that she's the girl. She's the girl that Joe Jonas, I forgot his character's name, was looking for, right? The entire movie. And I would imagine myself singing on stage like, this is me, this is the real. And just like awing everyone. Like, that has always been a fantasy that I play out. I feel like a lot of us do that. We're listening to a song that we like and we imagine ourselves in a music video. We imagine ourselves like singing our little hearts out, and like your ex is in the crowd and you're like, yeah, look at me now. Like, it's every like Disney Channel original movie fantasy played out. We all have those, okay? Like, I know you do. You can't lie to me. And in my fantasy, they're always like wishing that they, didn't do me wrong. They didn't do me dirty. And they're just like, wow, I never knew that she had this talent. Like, I'm so in awe. And, my life changes forever. Like, that's my redemption moment. This is what happens through my head. It's like, this is the free fantasy that goes through my head, okay? And as an adult, even though I still fantasize about this, okay? I have no shame in saying that. That more so looks like goals now. Goals that you make for the year, for the month, 5 years down the line, a year down the line, a goal for that week. All these fantasies, like now as an adult, are like translated into goals, right? Like, what do we want to accomplish? What do we want to do? Like, what do we want to make that is going to make us proud, turning it into something that could actually happen for us. But a lot of the time, we're just thinking about the outcome and not the actual process. That's what we fantasize about. We get that dopamine high from like thinking how we're going to feel after we accomplish this, and we're just feeling so good about ourselves. But then as the day progresses and that motivation fades, that dopamine fades, because now you're left like, how am I actually going to do that? Like, how am I actually going to accomplish that? How am I actually going to get there? And instead of figuring it out, because the fantasy is so big in our head, we just say, well, I guess that was unrealistic anyway, so never mind. All right, let's move on with our lives. But then we go back to like square one, inevitably. And we start fantasizing about all the things we want to get, about being rich, driving a Lamborghini, about walking that red carpet, winning that award, getting on TV, being praised by everyone, being fit and skinny, a skinny legend, if you so will. There's this idea online, and I feel like in my generation, Gen Z, where we're supposed to be like girl power, you can do anything, we can do anything that you set your mind to, never say never, never doubt anyone because they could be your boss one day type of mentality. And while that is great and all, I mean, compared to other generations, I think that this over optimistic mentality doesn't really get us too far. This is what we call positive thinking. Ooh, positive thinking. I'm a pretty optimistic person. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm very bubbly. I always see the best in people. I don't know. I feel like I am optimistic. I'm not a Debbie Downer. But there's also a balancing act that needs to happen, because to never expect anything bad to happen, that's just like not the reality of being a human, of existing on this earth. I'm going to read this quote real quick that says, positive thinking requires deliberate self-deception, including a constant effort to repress or block out unpleasant possibilities and negative thoughts. The truly self-confident, or those who in some way made their peace with the world and the destiny within it, do not need to expend effort censoring or otherwise controlling their thoughts. This is where I came across mental contrasting. Mental contrasting is a psychological goal setting and achieving technique. It asks you to visualize outcomes and obstacles of achieving a goal. Most of the time, as I said earlier, we only think about the anticipated outcome, the good outcome, like the satisfying relationship, the career success, the financial stability. However, by only focusing on the outcome, you may be unmotivated when challenges arise, which inevitably they do. But instead, with mental contrasting, the obstacle was anticipated. It simply becomes one of the expected outcomes instead of a personal failure. We often think about our lives in like short term, chasing the next thing despite our work obligations and responsibilities. And as a result, we become almost conditioned to feel the happiest when our life is free from obstacles. And I feel like this is going to be much simpler to understand if I use an example. This example is from an article called "What is Mental Contrasting and How Can We Benefit from It?" Say a man wants to buy his dream car, a Ferrari, right? He is captivated by the images of him driving it so seamlessly and getting glances from people watching him drive it and admiring his car. Maybe like even admiring his life, right? They're like fantasizing about like, ooh, like I wonder what he does. Like he must be so rich and happy and na, you know? Like you get a high from like thinking like that, like thinking what other people are going to think of you. So this, first of all, motivates him to start saving up money, right? But then the reality of how much is actually going to cost and how much work he's actually going to have to put in at work to get there kind of catches up with him, and that dopamine high comes to an end and he just settles for a cheaper car, a better car, but a cheaper car. But what if instead of just like fantasizing about the outcome, you know, having the Ferrari, what if he instead also, on top of fantasizing about the good outcome, fantasize also about how much work he actually had to put in, the long hours, you know, maybe picking up extra shifts, maybe trying to step it up so that he gets a higher position. Like instead of fantasizing about just the good, fantasize about the hard work that it's also going to take to get there. And this is what we call mental contrasting. And it's very, very valuable because it triggers expectations that can guide decisions about goal commitment and motivate sustained goal pursuits. So apply that to what I was saying in the beginning of this video, where I have fantasies about singing in front of people, when in reality, I get really shy when I'm singing in front of my boyfriend or singing even with my roommate in like the other room, even though my door's closed. Like I get shy. I get shy girl, okay? Like it just comes over me, and I'm not used to singing. I sing in front of my family all the time, but that's my family, you know, they don't care. I'm constantly vocalizing when I'm with my family, but when it comes to like my friends and anyone else, I'm like, I don't know. So while I'm over here picturing, you know, selling out a stadium in my fantasies, I also need to think about singing in front of other people, you know, have that mental contrasting of like, if I actually want to be able to sing in front of people, I'm gonna have to do the uncomfortable thing and sing in front of other people. One step I have taken towards this is actually taking singing lessons and singing to a stranger, which is my teacher now. She's not so much a stranger, but you know, at the beginning of this, she was a stranger, and I had to get comfortable with hearing my own voice out loud and knowing that someone else is hearing my voice out loud and they're judging. Well, not judging, but like she's like obviously has an ear out for like what being on pitch is like, and so I have to actually sing loud and actually use my breath and be confident and the words that I'm singing. That way she can get an understanding of my voice and how she can help me. That's the whole point of a singing lesson. And after this, I'm just obsessed with mental contrasting because it makes it so much more realistic and attainable to achieve a goal. I now start thinking about like, what would that actually look like if I did more singing, right? Like late night rehearsals and maybe getting vocal rest and having to sing nonstop for more than 30 minutes. That way I get comfortable in my own voice and, you know, experimenting with it. Again, the biggest thing is like singing in front of other people. That is something that I'm not so comfortable with. But if I'm going to fantasize about actually taking that step, I have to also fantasize about the uncomfortableness and pushing through that. or even working on learning music theory, or like because I have not, like, I took band in middle school, right? But that was middle school. Like, that feels so distant. That feels, I mean, I was what, 12, 13. It was so long ago. I don't remember anything. I played the flute and I did not play it very well. I'll tell you that. Okay. Especially because I had a crush in that class, Avery. I still remember him. He was he was my crush in band, and I was like so distraught when, like, I think it was 8th grade. He was like a grade above me. So like we had each other for, this is like a completely side tangent, but 7th grade, I remember being obsessed with that kid. And then when I moved up to 8th grade and he graduated and went to high school, I was so devastated and my heart broke forever. But anyways, that's besides the point of this. I got really excited after learning about mental contrasting, because after that, whenever I have a goal now, I apply it and I practice it every single time. Like, thinking about the desired outcome as well as the obstacles that I'm going to have to face to get there. Even something as simple as getting 30 minutes of reading done a day, I think about how good I'm going to feel afterwards, but I also think about the uncomfortableness that first 10 minutes, because I usually have a hard time focusing the first 10 minutes. I really have to think about, okay, like, I'm going to feel good after reading for 30 minutes, right? I'm going to feel accomplished and, you know, I'll learn a little something. But I also have to think about, like, the fact that I'm going to be uncomfortable for 10 minutes while I get in a flow state, because usually 10 to 15 minutes after that, that's when I get into like a flow state and I'm able to actually focus on what I'm actually reading and take it all in. So contrasting the good with the uncomfortableness actually made it so that I was able to take on that reading challenge instead of just giving up altogether, because I was having a hard time focusing the first 10 minutes and I'm like, oh, this is too hard, and I'm just gonna not try, because like obviously like this is uncomfortable, and you just need to like push through that, you know. You just need to push through that the first 10 minutes. It's fine. And instead of getting down on myself, I already like expected this, because I did mental contrasting and I thought about, oh, like this is what I expected to happen. Like this is one thing that could have happened, and I knew this might happen, you know? And again, obstacles therefore become anticipated, and it becomes simply one of the anticipated outcomes rather than a personal failure. To end, I'm gonna read a quote from one of the articles that I read while I was researching for this video. Think of a wish. For a few minutes, imagine the wish coming true, letting your mind wander and drift where it will. Then shift gears. Spend a few more minutes imagining the obstacles that stand in the way of realizing your wish. All right, I'm going to end it here. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And even if you had this in the background, which I love doing that, by the way, YouTube is my favorite thing to have in the background, especially when I'm at the gym. I don't know what it is, but I love it. Anyways, yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.